This is video file number 5 for Carolina Lions. So I'll just briefly talk about the garage. So the door in the garage here, the door frame has been damaged. The vendor said that during the last storm, basically the door frame just blew in slightly. If I take a closer look on the next page, you can see here the gap between the door frame and the reveal. Now the next page shows it more clearly. You can see the door frame has been blown in by this much, by about 50 mil, and it was just prevented from being blown in any further because I think it hit the inner leaf, but it really needs to be secured properly in position. Now the other door, the door on the gable of the garage, that was also damaged in the same storm. I think when the other door blew in, this door blew out, and the frame was damaged, and also the door was damaged. This pane here, this glass pane is smashed, but you can see that the frame itself is also damaged. So both of those need to be repaired. And they have added on this is the garage here, the double doors on the front, they've added like a rubber flap here on the bottom of the door. If you take a look at the next here, this is it zoomed in, you can see the rubber flap here. Basically what was happening is during storm conditions, driving rain will actually drive up the ramp and was getting into the garage and just wetting the floor on the garage. So that's why they put this flap on it, in case you were wondering. Now the electrical inside in the garage, the wiring, that's an old fuse. You don't see old fuses like that anymore. The wiring in the garage does not comply with building regulations. There are certain things that I can see that are a safety hazard. So you really need to get an electrician out to rectify the wiring in the shade. Now, in the main dwelling, I didn't see any problems, but you definitely need to get an electrician out to have a look at the wiring in the garage. Now, and I'll briefly talk about the shed as well. This is the fuel shed out the back. So the shed it's poorly designed, and there's a lot of you can see here a lot of cracks in the render, horizontal cracks in the render, both internally and in the plaster inside. You can see there's cracking. So this is a view from inside. You can see the wall is quite wet and damp here. There's a lot of cracks all over the place. Now, I don't know if you can see it from this photograph, but this wall is built with hollow blocks. So there are hollows, 2 hollows in each block, and you can see the hollows there. Basically, the hollows there along the top of the block, hollows all the way along there. And what will happen is, suppose this, it does allow ventilation, the fact that this is open, but driving rain will penetrate and will get into these hollows here, and it's saturating the blockwork. And what happens then in cold weather is you get freeze-thaw action, where the water can freeze and can cause damage to the plaster, and it can cause cracking and all kinds of problems. So, and then what happens is if you get cracking, then external cracking, you can see there's cracking here, then even more rain will penetrate through these cracks, and it'll lead to even more cracking. So it's not been designed well. And this is another view internally. You can see the dampness here in the wall. Now, there's also a full height vertical crack in this wall here. Now that could be from, foundation settlement. It could be from, the moisture that's penetrating, that it has resulted in cracking. This here, there's a vertical crack here. There's a steel beam across here. There's a steel column in the wall. The steel has corroded slightly. It still seems sound, but the steel has corroded slightly, and it has caused this crack here. So if you look on the next page, you can see here there's corroding of the steel column, and that corrosion and this ferrite oxide that's being produced, basically it expands and it's pushed off the render. So that's what's caused the crack in this instance. So it's poorly designed. I mean, the detail of tying the masonry into the steel, it's just there's been no allowance for movement has been made, and you can see that there's quite extensive rusting, I suppose, because there's quite a lot of rain that's going to penetrate down through these cores, because that's effectively almost open to the elements there. The roof sheeting is rusted, so you can see the roof sheeting is rusted there, and it's allowing rainwater to penetrate, and there's a little bit of fungal growth on this timber joist. The other thing I noticed in the shed, and something that you're going to have to deal with immediately if you're going to use the shed, is there's the electrical wiring is in, it's in a state of disrepair, I suppose you'd call it. It doesn't comply with the building regulations, so you need to get an electrician to come out and to make that safe, because it's a safety hazard. So in general, I suppose what I'd say about the shed is, it's not being lived in, so I'm not considering it a high priority dwelling. It's probably, it's not going to have as long a design life as the dwelling itself. It's been poorly designed, so I would stay away from it during severe storm conditions, but other than that, I would just monitor it, and as long as the walls are plumb, it's safe for now, but I would keep an eye on it, and if you notice anything that concerns you, you can call out an engineer or a builder if anything changes. Now, I looked at the basically the coverage. So these are coverage maps from the that's the website there, and the 2G coverage in your area is I suppose it's coming up as good. The 3G coverage there is fair, and then the 4G coverage is it's not great. Now, those are just extracts from maps, so I didn't actually get time to do a real test on site, but those are the maps anyway. So that's it. So I'm sure you're going to have, there's probably going to be one or two questions that you're going to have on the details of the report. You can call me anytime and I will go through it with you in as much detail as you need. That's going to be no problem. So I'll summarize again by saying that, I have a long list of defects there, but there's always a list of defects. But, what I will say is the building overall is above average. The main dwelling it's in good condition. Their problems are minor problems. It's not very well insulated, so you might find that it's difficult to heat it, but it is structurally sound, and it's above average compared to other buildings. Okay, and the best of luck.